Thank you, Daniel. Patriotic Brits are demonstrating the love of their country by smashing it up. Some of them were shouting about how this is a Christian country while trying to break headstones in a Church of England graveyard to use as projectiles to throw at the British police. This all makes as much sense as anything else that's happened lately, and it's just what you'd expect of those who think that a swastika tattoo is a good look. What do they do for a living? Wouldn't it be a shock to find that they don't do anything as a lifestyle choice and are a drain on the country they profess to love so much? Meanwhile, if you eat a pastry in Lyme Regis today, you're in for a big surprise. That and more coming up with me, Nick Abbott, after the new news at 10 on LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Well, let's get back to it.
Pretty good news from the Olympics, and we might be talking about that if it wasn't for morons. We are surrounded by morons, and they seem to be having an away day. Let's talk to Councillor Mike Ross. He's the leader of Hull City Council. He joins me now on the phone. Hello, Mike.
Hi there.
So what's happened there, Mike?
Well, in Hull, like in many parts of the country, as you say, there's been really terrible events taking place today. And, yeah, what I would just say in opening is these people out on the streets committing this sort of real sort of acts of violence and thuggery, they don't speak for Hull. They don't speak for me. They don't speak for the good people of the city. And I don't think they speak for the good people of this country. It is absolutely appalling what they've been doing. Well,
I don't think you have to wonder if they speak for the good people of this country. There's no doubt about it. There's way more of us than there are of them, but they appear to be having a moment. So you get the feeling that the people that are on the streets in Hull aren't actually from Hull?
I wouldn't want to sort of speculate on details in terms of where they come from. Certainly, my sense is some aren't from the city and that they've come in from elsewhere. There seems to be enough indications of that. And I think it's just appalling that they've chosen to come to Hull to... Yeah, they've not come to spread a political message. They've not come to campaign. They've come to cause violence and trouble, and that is just not acceptable.
I mean, it seems from my eyes that they're just having fun. I mean, they're essentially enjoying being part of a gang, which makes them feel tougher than they might be if they were just individuals. And it's a well-prepared, fun day out for them. You and I might go and have a picnic. This is what they do for amusement.
I mean, if this is their idea of fun, then I think they really need to take a real long, hard look at themselves and just think what it says about them, what it says about what they're trying to do. It's not fun. I mean, I know why you're saying that. It's not fun. It's causing chaos and disruption. There's been just appalling scenes across the city, as there has been across other parts of the country today. And this is not the city of Hull that I love. This is not the people of Hull that I love. Hull is a proud city. It's a city of great people, and we will react to it. People will come out and they'll help turn the city around from these events. But they shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to go through these sort of events. It's not right. And I just think, what we've seen today is absolutely appalling.
And how have the police been able to manage this? Because they knew it was coming, didn't they?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of work, a lot of planning going for police. Obviously, it's for the police to sort of account for all their steps. But what I would say is, my thanks go out to all their forces from the top down who've been working on this. And of course, across other services as well, the fire services, ambulance services, and of course the teams from the council and elsewhere who have been either dealing with the incidents as they happen or will be dealing with the clean-up and what is to fall out from this. They put themselves on the line, and we owe them our debt of gratitude.
And is it taking place in the centre of town? Because I've seen some pictures of a shoe shop that was set on fire. I mean, what sense does that make?
Oh, well, indeed. I mean, this is what I say. They're not furthering their political cause, if they have one, indeed, by doing this. They're simply causing chaos and disruption, and that isn't good enough. At the same time, Hull today has seen from the largest festivals that we have in the year, something called Humber Street Fest taking place. That is a celebration of music and a celebration of love and everything else that we want to see in the city. And so the juxtaposition of that against these awful scenes is just really, really stark. But what it goes to show is that is the real whole. That is the sort of city that I love. And we want to see more of that, not more of this thuggery. Yeah, it's a blip, isn't it? It's morons who are feeling comfort in the with other like-minded people who. I think the danger, if we just completely call it a blip. So, as much as I think what has happened is acts of thuggery and acts of disgraceful violence, I do recognise that there is an issue out there that, if we don't address head-on, won't go away. I think that is the problem here. That, if there's attempts to simply sweep under the carpet the concerns, then actually that will just see more of this happen potentially. I don't in any way condone what has happened here and what these people do, and I disagree fundamentally with those points that they might try and make. But it's dangerous to simply say it's a blip and it might disappear. Who would have thought this would be happening on our streets today, a few weeks ago? But yet it has. So we need to make sure that everything is done to make sure these sorts of things don't happen again. What do you mean by address their concerns? Do they actually have logical concerns, or are they just... I'm not saying that they do. What I'm saying is they do. And I think it's a case of, if we simply try to sort of just brush it off and say there's no issues, then that is, in many senses, playing into their hands. What we need to do is recognise that, there are issues in the broader sense. The people out there, they're causing the trouble, causing the thuggery on the streets, smashing up cars and setting them on fire and so on. They're just thugs and vandals. I'm not saying they have a political concern, but it's too easy to simply say that this is a blip and this is a one-off. I think actually we need to say that there are broader issues in society here, and we need to actually address those as well. And how would you go about doing that? I mean, it's 10 o'clock at night after all the events have taken place today. I think it'd take much more than the time we have now to go into detail. But certainly, we need to actually recognise that actually we do as a society need to really look at ourselves more deeply and actually say what it is the sort of society we want and how do we actually get that tolerant society. We need to see more tolerance and love, not more thuggery and brutishness. All right, well, let's leave on that. Good work. Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Mike Ross from the Hull City Council, leader of Hull City Council, as a matter of fact. Some texts and tweets and such from last night. Jeff says, Farage can't be Prime Minister. Couldn't happen. 2 words, Liz Truss. Anything is possible. You have been warned. Absolutely. This anonymous text says, they are racist and should be locked up. Doesn't actually specify who the they is, though. Don't assume one way or the other. Caroline says, so white nationalists can attack the police with impunity, but if you're black or brown, you're perceived to be a violent, radicalised immigrant. Get the army out and stop these thugs. It cannot continue. I've had quite a few suggestions of getting the army out. Well, shoot them all on sight. I'm not sure that's an answer either. I mean, it might solve the problem initially, but might cause a bigger one down the road. Simon texts, we want our country backwards. We're getting there. Yeah, it's just slowly but surely. Yeah, I think that's about right. Barry says, basically what you're saying to the nation is anybody that has a difference of opinion on the changing demographic of the country is far right and racist. You people are disgusting. You're an absolute joke. And if anything, you should shut your mouth. All one sentence. Not a full stop or a comma in there. Good work, Barry. Keep on keeping on. James says the Tory government has allowed far more legal immigrants to live in the UK, like from Hong Kong and Ukraine, for example. They don't seem to mind those, though. Well, they're less easily identifiable, aren't they? 0345 6060 97. And the numbers, by the way, are in the favour of the person who just wrote that text. I think it's about 40,000 people a year, or last year anyway, that arrived by small boat. Over 1 million came through clutching permission from His Majesty's government. And which of those numbers, over 1 million or the 40,000, are these people concentrating on? Well, you don't need me to tell you that.
0345 6060 973, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
LBC. This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
This is absolute tosh.
Thanks, Nige. You're the best. Phil says it's quite simple. There needs to be consequences for actions, and the powers that be need to get a little more heavy-handed so people realise they can't behave like that. Start dishing out some punishment. Chris says on that subject, 5 years in prison for conspiracy to block a road. So how long will the rioters get? Yeah, less than that would be my guess. I'm just guessing. You know, if they'd actually held up a road and inconvenienced drivers, then they'd be inside for a very long time. Let's see how long they get for setting fire to a shoe shop. Or throwing bricks through the window of a phone store or a vape store, I saw, and then accidentally running inside and looting the place. You know, they fell through the window, and when they got up, coincidentally, their pockets were just absolutely full of vapes. Who could have predicted that? And they're doing it because they love our country. Lucy says it may be darker than just morons on the move. It could be designed to undermine our great new Prime Minister, who is exceeding everyone's expectations. Is he? Already? She says that must really annoy all the bellicose grifters in Reform and the Tories, so a little race rioting suits them. But I have confidence in Starmer to steer this country to a better place again. Well, I don't know about exceeding everyone's expectations. It might be a bit early for that. Let's not start throwing a party yet, Lucy. But we do seem to be moving towards the light. Both here and in France and in America as well. America. Let's have, let me see now. Glasgow. Hello, David. Oh, no, I've done that wrong. A small technical error. One moment, please. There you are. David. David.
David in Glasgow, are you looking for?
Yes, there you are.
Hi, Nick.
How you doing?
Well, not too bad. Hope you're well. For once, I don't want to talk about the weather, thank goodness.
Is it raining?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, stop it. Nick, I switched on just before 10 o'clock in time to catch the LBC 10 o'clock news.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I knew about the trouble in Sunderland and Liverpool last night, but I have to say I was a bit stunned to hear that this contagion has spread to so many English cities and towns.
Yeah. It's not it's not spread organically, though. I mean, these are planned events.
No, yes, I know. But outside England, one name particularly caught my attention, and that was Belfast.
Right.
And the reason for saying that is I don't know what on earth the people in Belfast who were rioting about. But one thing I do know, I have my suspicions that there are factions in Glasgow, particularly the west of Scotland, because we have factions here of which, since you've lived in Scotland, Nick, I'm sure you're well aware of. And my fear is that it might... Well, I really don't know.
I think that we have to stop getting carried away about this. These people aren't taking over. They're not the majority. We're not being overrun by these people. They're a tiny minority who just shout very loud. That's all, and it will come and it will go, and life will return to normal. And most people who aren't affected that much will forget all about it.
I suspect you're right, and I sincerely hope you're right. But nonetheless, the fear lingers.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to...
Oh, no, I get it. But cheer up, mate. It might never Oh, no, that's right. It already has. Okay. There's no sense in being dour about it, David. Let's concentrate on the positive. We've been moving in what I would call the right direction. moving towards the light and away from
this government
and all of the people that are associated with that. And things seem to be better and more positive. But, of course, because it's news and because these people are making a right noise at the moment, we are consumed by this. Apart from anything else, the press, the printed press and the internet news sources and TV, of course, are obsessed with exciting pictures. And this kind of thing presents an enormous amount of exciting pictures. So we're going to be getting it on our internet feeds and our TV screens for as long as they're prepared to flip cars over and set them on fire. But just because we're seeing a lot of it doesn't mean to say there is a lot of it about and that there is a lot of them about. And, you know, in moments like this, people have the tendency to put their heads in their hands and think that our future has been taken away from us in some way. Which is playing right into what they would have liked happen in the first place. Those of what few of them are actually thinking this stuff through rather than answering a call. But I know that it's bad, but it's not as bad as some people are making out. 0345 6060 973. Let's have, let's see now, Sandbatch. John.
Hiya.
Hello, John.
Hiya. Somebody put a message in earlier on thinking it's all all politically motivated to coincide with the Labour government just coming into power and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of value in what that person said. I believe so, anyway.
Well, somebody was on last night and they were suggesting that the riots in the recent history, in our memory, if you're of a certain age, they did tend to coincide with a change in government. Perhaps because the previous government was saying that they were going to deal with whatever problem it is that they are exercised about, and it was just a series of we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We're going to stop the boats and we're going to put them on Rwanda, on planes to Rwanda, and so on, as a recent example. And so people that might have gone off like this, like a thrown hand grenade. Yeah. They might have had their fury tamped down by the thought that what they really wanted, misery for others, was going to be delivered to them. And then a change of government comes and they say, well, we're going to ditch the Rwanda plan, and we have other ideas about stopping the boats and so on. And then the powder keg goes off, and these people express themselves in the only way they know how.
And they found a reason. Although it's got nothing, and I know, and they know, got nothing to do with the murders of those little girls. Nothing whatsoever. It's completely hooligan. I think there could be a criminal element to it too.
You think? Really? You think there could be a criminal element? Well, I think that that's decided, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, nothing to do with it. Right. It's just like, they found a reason to do it, so let's do it. I mean... I get the feeling from the pictures that I've seen of these people doing it that they're just having way too much fun. They got their songs for a start, and they've got their uniform. They're all dressed kind of the same, and they're all feeling much tougher than they ordinarily would do because they're in a crowd, and this sort of this amorphous line before them is a bunch of like anonymous people. The police before them with the riot shields and so on, they're not actual real people in the minds of the people that are doing the rioting. They're just, I don't know, almost like ciphers for everything that they feel is keeping them down. And so that's why they're directing their attacks at the police, because they're just presenting a sort of a uniform blue wall that doesn't really represent actual human beings. Because if you sat individuals down with the police person that they just tried to attack and you had them chat over a cup of tea,
then they wouldn't be acting like that. But they do that because they feel the security of being in a crowd.
You can tell who they are because when they're walking down the street, the knuckles are dragging down on the ground. And then, I mean, these people, I mean, I remember I wasn't living in England then, the riots and Toxteth and that. But if there were a reason, I think there was a reasons behind it. You may know better than I did because I wasn't here, but this has got no reason to it. There's no method, no rhyme, no reason.
Well, I think that the reason is not anything to do with what they're actually saying, and it's got nothing to do with their call to arms, and has nothing to do with any of the excuses or reasons that any of the people either taking part or who are leading them have articulated. I don't think it's got anything to do with any of the things that they're saying. It's about, and I was talking about this briefly last night, it's about wealth inequality. It's about the fact that people cannot get ahead no matter how hard they work. They can do 2 jobs and they're still struggling to pay their bills. They can't barely afford a roof over their head. They can't afford to buy anywhere. They can't afford to rent anywhere. The jobs that they can get, if they can get them, are minimum wage going nowhere jobs. So they've got no hope. They see no future. They feel as though their future has been taken from them. And it has. By the richest people in the world, who keep getting ever more stratospherically rich while almost everybody else on Earth gets correspondingly poorer. But it's a very difficult thing to articulate. And who do you attack in that circumstance? I mean, where is Elon Musk if you wanted to have a quick chat with him? You can't get anywhere near these people. So they don't bother to think about the actual cause of the misery that they may have been going through. And you can't blame, they wouldn't feel comfortable blaming themselves. And you can't blame luck, because what is that? But it's a combination of all of the above. Luck, their own attitude to life, and the fact that something like 60% of all the wealth that has been created on Earth in the last couple of decades has gone to 1% of the people. I'll say that again. 60% of all of the wealth that has been created by all of us has gone to 1% of the people. And that 1% covers an enormous range of wealth. I mean, we're really talking about the 0.1%. It's just a tiny group of people you could probably fit on a bus. But again, it's difficult to articulate the fury at those people, because who are they? And because they have all of the money, they have all of the media as well, all of the newspapers, the right-wing media that controls social media as well, because those people who control social media are now all in for Trump. Why? Because plenty enough money is apparently not sufficient. And that's the it of it. I think these people have some kind of mental illness. If you're worth £100 billion, why on earth are you yearning for more? But they are. And they're getting it at the expense of everybody else. There was an article about how, and this applied to America, but whatever happens in America happens here precisely. And they were talking about the wealth that has been created over the past several decades, and how much people would be earning if they had the sort of share in the wealth that they created as people used to do in the 1960s and 70s, for instance. And it's staggering. We're all about half as well off as we actually should be had not the wealth that we'd created ourselves through our work had been shared out as equally as it used to be, which used to be pretty unequal, but now it's ridiculous. But I might get into that in a while. I also want to talk about some happier things as well, because I did 3 hours on this last night, and there's only so much I can take. Don't push me, because I'm close to the edge.
Rock and roll!
0345 6060 973. Can't take a call just before the news because that would be unfair. It would be on and gone. So I'll read some texts and emails and such. I'm getting through the ones that came in last night. So many. Sam texts, it's all very funny to hear about Trump's sayings in interviews, but why on earth can't Americans see through him? It's absolutely shocking, says Sam. Well, there's a certain amount of Americans who can't see through him.
I love the poorly educated.
I'm not mentioning anybody in particular, but that might coincide with a lot of his fans. Zach said, I just switched on LBC and I thought that Trump was talking, but then I realised it was actually Nick Abbot. I do a pretty bad impression. Zach is flattering me. Paul says, I bet you can't believe Trump's back. Your stress levels must be through the roof. Nigel is back as well. Hilarious. Back? I don't know. Where is Nigel? Anybody seen him lately? Hey, has anybody in Clacton seen Nigel lately?
No.
No, I wouldn't expect that you would. No. I wouldn't hold your breath. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Hey, by the way, the Friday and Saturday night shows get put up the internet as a podcast. I should mention this every now and again. I'm terrible at self-promotion. The idea is that we take the news and most of the ads out. Mostly. Which means it takes less time to listen to, and it will give you more time to contemplate the wonder of the world. It's exclusive to Global Player. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. Nick Abbot, The Whole Show Podcast. Now, it's 10:30 on LBC. We have the news headlines read for us by Tim Daly.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What number are you calling from?
0345 6060 973. Let's have West Yorkshire, Assad.
Hi, good evening to you. How are you today?
All right, thanks.
Excellent. Okay. Well, if you give me a couple of minutes, I would like to put a point of view across from my end about the recent things. I know as much as you don't want to talk about it, or you're getting to the edge of it because we spoke about it last night for 3 hours. But yes, allow me a couple of minutes. It would be good to, I think it would be a good experience for a few of the listeners to listen to.
Well, you've already used 30 seconds of your couple of minutes on the preamble. Go ahead. Time's running out.
No problem, sir. Thank you. So I came to the UK in 2004 as a student. So I am an immigrant. I know, and people surrounding me know how hard I and the group of people I came with have worked to get where we are. And during this tenure being in the UK, we have never broken any laws. We have never seen a side of a police station. We have paid our taxes, and we have built up a life, for our own self. And we also have been involved. And when I say we, the reason I'm saying we is there was a group of us which came to the UK right after another, about 30, 35 of us. So we went to the same university, same school, same college. And at this point in time, having a look at all these riots and everything, we are beginning to question ourselves within the community if UK is, safe for us. We understand that within the community we come from and other communities there are good and bad people. But certainly a horrific incident like that does not mean the entire community, whether it's whichever religion, background they come from, are to blame. There is no excuse for what is happening. We live in a quiet cul-de-sac and we look after each other, and it's a very good mixed environment. However, when we are scared to go outside nowadays, because my son usually travels to Skipton or Leeds during the weekend, and this weekend I asked him not to use the trains, and he's been home. He's only 16. My daughter's only 2.5 years old. I don't know how to explain it to him. That whatever is happening, it's not our fault, but he's questioning me, and someone needs to answer this. I think the sane voices in the UK are not loud enough at this moment in time to handle what is happening outside. A lot of sane voices need to be on the TV or any social media medium trying to explain it to people that this is now how you deal with troubles.
Yeah, but that's not. Do you think it's actually going to make any difference at the moment? Because they've got a head of steam up. I mean, it's not going to last forever, and it will peter out like these things always do. It's just that at the moment there's a very, very tiny number of these people. It's just that they're shouting really loudly, as is their wont.
Correct. The problem is that now social media is so open as compared to all the previous protests or all the previous issues when these happened. The social media, people were not that active enough. Nowadays, people who are inciting these troubles, and I don't want to name anyone because that may come across wrong, but they need to be, served with a gagging order so that those voices can be shut down. Certainly someone sitting outside of the UK, getting baking in sun and stuff like that cannot be, leading this crowd of people. That person's ran away.
Gag orders. That sort of that leads you into dodgy territory. I mean, I can understand why you would say that, but the people that are orchestrating it, they always leave a certain amount of plausible deniability. All I'm doing is asking questions, they say.
Agreed. Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Well, this is the reason why I was saying, and I know that when someone's shouting so loud they cannot hear sanity, it's very difficult. But we have to keep on trying because we only have a limited amount of police force. We cannot be expecting these police forces to go out there every day, putting themselves in line of danger, clearly outnumbered and getting injured every day. It's just not right. I mean, I'm a very active user of Twitter. And it's just shocking to see, these are our police forces. They look after ourselves. These are our NHS workers who are going to be busy these weekends, handling on the injured. I've just come back from the hospital a week ago. I was admitted for a week. And the staff in NHS, they were multicultural. All of them looked after me the same way. They were trained the same way. There was no hostility. We cannot be doing this to our own system at this moment in time. And the system is already so, pressured. And I don't know who to talk to and who to tell that, look, this is not right. Please do not do that. Just close to my city right now where I'm in Bradford, there was a massive, protest. And I got messages from friends that a lot of things went wrong, but I did not, forward these messages to anyone else because all it will do is just incite more trouble. So we have to make sure that, we are managing this side of circus or audience, in a way that it doesn't get, fueled upon, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. How that would come about, don't ask me. I wouldn't engage with them on Twitter if I were you. Like, what is the point? Assad, thanks for that. Appreciate it. 0345 6060 973. I mean, it strikes me that these people who are professing their love of our country, who are, at this moment dismantling it into its constituent parts and then setting it on fire, I'd rather more people like Assad and fewer people like them. I mean, I would call that taking my country back because that's what I think my country should look like. More peaceful people who are actually making who are sort of making an improvement with their lives, rather than the people that we're looking at on TV with open-mouthed amazement that they can figure out how to get out of the house and tie their shoes in the morning, let alone lead a life that's for the benefit of the rest of us. But, maybe that's just me. Les text, is there going to be a regular Donald Trump disinformation hour every week until the election? I don't know what you mean, Les. If you mean I going to take the mick out of Donald Trump every week until the election, well, yeah, probably, because it's very hard not to. If you just report word for word what he says, people, including himself, they lose their minds and say that whoever is repeating his words is being very, very mean. He actually said that to that journalist just the other day. Being very, very mean, very rude. To read my own words back to me, said Donald Trump, the world's biggest baby. I suspect that Les is a fan. Abdul says, Trump is unhinged. Oh, here we go, the opposite. Trump is unhinged, but he speaks to the people suffering. Most people gravitate towards his message because traditional politicians have neglected everyday citizens and don't address their issues. Neither does he, Abdul. It's a pretense. He's pretending. Give him $1 million and he will do anything you like. If you don't happen to have that kind of money, then I wouldn't hold out any hope. Bab says, Sunderland thugs shouting, I want my country back, simultaneously smashing it up and looting the shops. That tells you all you need to know about it, really. I mean, the looting the shops part. It's fun. And they saw the opportunity to fill their pockets with vapes or phones or whatever it might be. And were they going to let that go? You know, for the benefit of the country? Just the idea that they would organise online and they've got their songs and they all know each other and they got their 6-pack of beer and it's just it's like a fun day out with added excitement. It's like what they used to do at the football, but there isn't any football at the moment, so you know they're using this as well. And to start trying to unravel what it is that they're after and what their political aspirations are, I mean, it's utterly pointless. I mean, have you heard them speak? What would be the point of trying to engage with them? Vicky says, could you please take 5 minutes from your planned programme and start a campaign for summer cool allowance? This minimum 2, if not 3 showers a day are going to start costing big money. Thanks, I'm sure you'll get supporters' grand programme. Oh, you don't mean showers outside. You mean you're having a shower and you want compensation. Yeah, okay, Vicky, leave it with me. Let's have Sunderland. Hello, Rebecca.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Rebecca.
You're my hero.
Ah, well, everybody needs a hero.
You're definitely mine. Oh, I didn't expect to be so quick.
I'll put you on hold if you like. You have been waiting.
No.
You have been waiting almost 20 minutes.
I'm sure they said I was the third one.
Right.
And I am the second.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, sometimes life just gives you a gift, don't it?
I know. Oh, my God, you're my gift.
Let's not get...
You just speak so much sense.
Let's not get carried away.
Whatever, but no.
Right.
No, let's not. But all I have to say is, I'm in Sunderland tonight.
Yeah.
With my partner, my boyfriend, and it was so weird because we've had this planned for probably a couple of months. We live in Newcastle, and occasionally we come across to Sunderland because there are some nice parks.
Yeah.
And last night I was on a dog sit. I'm a dog walker, stroke dog sitter, and I heard all about the riots. And I said to my partner, "Oh my God, we're going over to the Hilton. We're staying in the Hilton, you know."
Right.
Not the shabby part.
No, well, you get a better class of rioters staying at the Hilton. Yeah.
yeah. There are a few stains. I'm a bit disappointed on the carpet.
Anyway.
So, I digress.
Yeah, you're just saying that in case they say, hang on a minute, you owe us for a new carpet. What's this?
No, I actually prefer Premier Inn because I find that comfort. The bed's more comfortable.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Right. This isn't the holiday show, but go on.
No. Anyway, so we were walking around Sunderland tonight, and there were a lot of police present.
Yeah.
Obviously, because of what had happened. And then, sorry, my partner just burped. Did you hear that?
I did hear that, yeah. I just heard a noise, but you filled in the blanks for us. Appreciate that, Rebecca.
Sorry. So we were walking around, and I said to him, he went into Sports Direct. I was sitting outside. I've had a few drinks, by the way, booze.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in, and I was sitting down, and I saw these kids, like 16, 17, 18, walking down with balaclavas on.
Yeah.
And I thought, uh-oh, this is it. This is it. It's happening.
Mm.
And these CSOs, I saw some CSOs and lots of police vans around, and they followed them down the street. So we walked around because we were just going back to the hotel, and then we walked past this shop or this nightclub, and the windows were all smashed in.
Right.
And the man outside, doorman, said, yeah, these kids have just gone by and smashed in the windows.
In order to show how much they love their country?
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously. And it was really shocking because there were loads of police present. And my son is presently training to become a police officer.
Ooh.
Pardon?
I said ooh.
Yes. And I'm a bit sort of scared that Jack, he's very sensible, he's 28, he's got his head screwed on, he's a very sensible young man, you know, and I trust him, but I don't trust everybody else.
Well, no, quite. I mean, the thing with the police is, whatever you may think about them, they are running towards the danger while everybody else is running away from it.
Exactly. And all the things that he tells me, what goes on, the trainers, the PTSD that they've suffered, all that, it's really scary. What the police have to go through.
On a daily basis, yes. They see things that most people would be lucky enough to go through their entire life without seeing once.
Exactly.
They see it every day. Yeah.
Yes, and it's shocking. And people on this, crusade, and like you, I'm accepting of everybody, whoever comes in this country, we all need help. We all live on the same planet. If I go to another country and I need help, I'd hope they'd help me.
Yes, right, exactly.
I feel that we all share the same earth, we all share the same planet.
Planet.
I've had a bit of red wine. Planet. Why can't we all just get along?
Yes, exactly. Why can't we all just get along? Precisely right.
Why does this have to be about race and colour and everything else? Why can't we just share everything? I'm appalled by this country at the minute.
Well, we just did.
No, I am.
Remember, just recently we threw out the Conservative government after 14 years of misrule, and we turned a positive corner. So this does not wipe that off our the positivity board. We're moving forwards, Nick. And every now and again you'll be stopped in your tracks or you'll move a step back, but overall the direction is forwards.
Yeah, exactly, Nick. And what I'm saying is, and oh God, I completely lost my train of thought there, but I am disgusted in the way people are behaving now. Yeah. Because of the suffrages, because of all this right-wing media malarkey.
Well, just enough of us are disgusting. There's no doubt about it. That's the human race. We're not really that much different to when we used to live in caves. I mean, we cover ourselves with a thin veneer of civility, but beneath we are Neanderthals. Some more so than others. Stay safe, Rebecca. Thanks for that. 03, a stain on the carpet, you say? Nothing to do with you. All right, try telling that to the front desk. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Oh, hello.
0345 6060 973. Mike says, looking at the amount of right-wing nonsense on social media, it feels like cyber warfare. Could it be bad actors whipping up the far right to cause some sort of civil war? Well, if it does turn into a civil war, Mike, I think it'll be over really quickly. Because there's way more of us than there are of them. Way more. And if it actually gets serious, which I know part of me thinks that it will, but if it does, then I think they'll last about 10 seconds. Jim says, I hope they take a note of how much these riots are costing the economy, and if people are missing hospital appointments and ambulances are being delayed, as in the M25 protests, then the organisers can at least get what the Just Stop Oil lot got. Yes. And we should keep in mind those sentences, because what is happening at the moment is much worse than that, because at least the people with the Just Stop Oil had a good and verifiably good reason for what they were doing. Whereas these people don't. So let's hope that the sentences reflect that. But I'm not holding out any hope. How about you? 0345 6060 973. Carnforth. Hey up, Annie.
Hey up, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Well, I was going to ring you about something completely different, which I will say in a minute, but just about Just Stop Oil. I mean, the difference between Just Stop Oil and this bunch of thugs is the Just Stop Oil lot were completely non-violent. I mean, they were just sitting there gluing themselves to the road. They weren't doing anything violent. They weren't attacking police officers with...
Or not even doing that necessarily, or just thinking about doing it, or saying that they might do something in the future. It's almost like a Minority Report thought crime.
Yes, terrible. It's really quite shocking, actually.
Well, I'm going to assume that that's just a hangover from the authoritarianism of the previous administration, which the current lot are trying to rid themselves and rid the corridors of power of the stink of the previous administration.
I wouldn't be so sure about that, because Keir Starmer said something very derogatory about Just Stop Oil, so we'll wait and see.
Did he? Yeah. Well.
Yes, and actually that's what I rang up about, because one of your previous emailers said something about, she thought maybe all these riots were to do with maybe people trying to make the government look bad because the new government had exceeded her expectations.
Yeah.
And
Keir Starmer has already exceeded our expectations. I'm not entirely sure about that. Give him a while, surely.
Well, actually, he's exceeded my expectations, but in a bad way.
Oh.
Well, yes, because of all this going on, it's really not had as much discussion as it should have had. But I was actually shocked that any Labour government, within the first 3 weeks of getting in, has attacked pensioners.
Attacked pensioners in what way?
Because they're more or less abolishing the winter fuel allowance.
Well, only those that don't need the money, surely.
No, that's not true. There's 1.4 million pensioners on pension credit. Now, they're the only people who will get it. But there's 12.6 million pensioners. There's many pensioners who are actually like us, who have applied for pension credit, but we just had a few pounds a week too much money between us. So there's lots of people who are just above that threshold, and that threshold is very low. You know, the threshold for pension credit is very low. So even if there's about 800,000 people who should be getting pension credit who aren't, either they don't realise they're entitled to it, or they don't want to, some people, older people of a particular, they don't want to be independent and all the rest of it. But even if you add them in, so that would make about 2.2 or 4 million pensioners. There's still about 10 million pensioners who won't get it. And admittedly, some pensioners don't need it.
Yeah.
But to set the bar so low, there will be several million pensioners who are like us, who are only just above that threshold. And many pensioners as well, like us, who are either disabled pensioners or very frail and elderly and housebound, because we're more or less housebound. I mean, my partner's completely bedbound. I very rarely go out, and if I do, I have to have carers to take me, which costs me £38.50 per hour for a carer to take me. So, because we're in all the time, we need heating on, and plus we have the carers here for hours per day. More than we used to. Now my partner's so much iller. So we can't have a freezing cold house for carers to come and work in. And I do think that there will be a lot more deaths of hypothermia this winter and or malnutrition from pensioners. And it's really a false economy on the part of the government, because this is going to have a knock-on effect on the health service, because there'll be more pensioners getting ill from living in damp, cold houses and not feeding themselves properly, choosing between heating and eating. They're going to end up in the NHS, for both of those reasons, really. And plus, it'll have another knock-on effect on social care, because they'll come out and then they'll need social care. So it's a false economy, really.
I agree with everything you're saying, but should we not wait until the budget in, when is it, September?
But they've said this already. They announced it on Monday. Rachel Reeves announced it, that this was what was going to happen. So I don't think we'll hear anything different in the budget. Right.
Well, we'll know when we get there.
Yeah, well, I've written a very long email to our new MP, who is a good sort. Goodness knows how she's managed to survive in the current Labour Party, but she is. But I feel quite angry, actually, that I voted Labour, because I nearly didn't, and this is what they've done to pensioners. So we'll wait and see. And I think a lot of new MPs, and just MPs generally, have been inundated with emails about this, because there's now a lot of very angry pensioners. Although you get some come on and say, oh, well, we don't need it, we're okay. And I'm thinking, well, that's all right, I'm all right, Jack, you know, but there are people who really need it.
Well,
and they will be suffering this winter.
Yeah, the bottom line for me about pensioners is that we have just about the meanest state pension in all of Europe. I mean, it's just... The safety net in this country is almost non-existent, and this is partly the reason why people feel so, not really got anything to do with the riots, but they feel so sort of out of sorts and desperate, and people are on the edge of failing all the time. It's something of the... I've got some information about this. It's an amazing number of people in this country who could not cope with an £800 bill. Like an £800 surprise bill. They wouldn't have the money for it. I'll look that up. There's just a sea of statistics, and it's all swimming in front of my eyes. I can't speak and look it up at the same time. But I will. Don't worry about that. Annie, thanks for that. I wish you all the best. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Some more texts and emails from last night. Caroline says, it's so true. It's tribal ignorance. Generations of ignorance creates rage. But what's the solution? Education, Caroline. And their response would be, we don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. This text says, youth. Most of them are middle-aged. It's actually true, yeah. Way too old to be that stupid. I completely agree in every way, shape and form. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and...
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global. Leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Oh 0345 6060 973. Damien says, you mentioned that these people are like Bond villains. I was talking about the people who have the money behind Donald Trump. Keep in mind that these are texts and tweets and such from last night. Let me just look ahead, see how many have come in from tonight. I'm never going to get through these. You mentioned that these people are like Bond villains. Bond villains had class, though, says Damien. Some of them did, yeah. Cheryl says, people have genuine concerns. Their behaviours are strange and weird and disturbing. As is that text. People have genuine concerns. Their behaviours are strange, weird and disturbing. Not quite sure what point you're making there, Cheryl. Agnes says, did you see the Goodwood reporter ignoring the Lizbot? Yes. That was one of the funniest things I've seen this year. Goodwood, was it? Yeah, it was some horsey thing, and the reporter was interviewing some bloke who had something to do with horses, and he was, going on about betting, and I've got no clue. I don't know anything about horses. And you were dimly aware that there was a person who was hanging on his shoulder
who looked as though she was ready to speak and was itching to be asked her opinion on something, or just to be noticed and recognised. And you thought, because she was wearing stupidly huge sunglasses, they looked like she pulled the windscreen off a car and had sellotaped it to her face. You could barely see her behind them. And you looked at her, and because she was sort of hovering with her mouth open, which is what she does, as though ready to speak, and she was sort of on her tiptoes, itching to join in the conversation, as though to say, why aren't you talking to me? Have you seen me? And I thought, that looks like Liz Truss. And it was. And the reporter had absolutely no idea. You made such an impact, Liz Truss, that people look right at you and don't see you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We're still trying to forget you. We're not missing you, in case you were wondering. 0345 6060 973. Vicky says, I am so sad at what is happening in our country. Sounds a bit like Donald Trump. So sad what is happening to our country. Well, I try to understand the viewpoints of the far left and the far right. I actually just want my country to be inclusive and safe. Vicky just wants her country back. And Paul says, can anybody tell me why we've been spending the last day or so debating whether a female boxer, born a female, was transgender and who clearly beat up another boxer? No, that confuses me too. And I'm not prepared to say a single another word about it, other than that I don't think boxing has any justification of being an Olympic sport. Why is hitting people in the head an Olympic sport? I mean, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Boxing causes brain damage, doesn't it? I mean, why wouldn't it? So why is it an Olympic sport? I don't get it. I'll add it to the list of things that I don't think should be an Olympic sport, like tennis, for instance. Obviously, tennis shouldn't be an Olympic sport, and neither should hockey or football. Football, definitely out. What is football doing being an Olympic sport? And who are the footballers who are taking part? Why are all the top tennis people allowed to take part, as though they're amateur athletes? Do me a favour. They probably charge to come down to breakfast. And yet football is full of people I've never heard of. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not paying close enough attention. Gdansk, Poland. G'day, Tom.
Dzień dobry, or dobry wieczór.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, I've picked up the language very slowly over 10 years. My wife's Polish. We met in London, and yeah, she was one of the first off the boat, as she says, when the Poles came over, just before actually they joined the EU.
Oh, yeah.
So she came over, got a job, we met, and in 2020 we relocated to Poland, so I'm an expat.
Right. Why did you go back to Poland?
So, well, a few reasons happened at once, really. It was a combination. The end of the transition period was coming, end of 2020, and it made sense for me I was going to come over here, to do it then, so that it was a lot easier and quicker for me to get an ID card, which I've got now. It gives me EU citizen rights for infinity. So every 10 years, I just have to update my card, but I'm now set. Yeah, so it helps me in terms of getting over here, and I can now be employed. I'm employable wherever I.
Yeah, and you can join whatever line in the airport looks less busy.
Well, when I get a passport, but not yet.
Oh, you haven't got the passport yet? Right.
No,
okay.
I'm not a citizen yet, so I still have my British passport and have to wait half an hour.
To enjoy your Brexit freedom, all the more. Yeah, just wait and wait.
Yeah. It's frustrating, but all in all, I feel like we made the right move. We had to sacrifice a lot. We sold our flat, and because I'm not a Pole yet, and they've got strict rules on applying for mortgages here, we haven't been able to get on the housing ladder again because you have to be in something between what I am and a citizen, a permanent resident. You can then apply for a mortgage. So.
But property must be way less expensive there than here.
Well, it was for a while, but in the last 5 years, inflation in Poland was higher than it was in the UK recently. It was up to 15, 16, 8% when it was, I think, 11% in the UK. So comparatively speaking, especially the working class in Poland, they faced harder times.
Well, it depends what you mean by depends what you mean by inflation, because if it was 11% here, then that's not what people were feeling, because that's not what people were buying. People were buying the ordinary everyday things, food, for instance, petrol, stuff like that.
Yes.
And the corporations that provided that went on a sort of mad frenzy of profiteering. And so that's what people were feeling. They were feeling that inflation was more like 25%, not whatever they said it was, a lower figure, because they added in all sorts of things that people don't ordinarily buy on a daily basis.
That's
but anyway,
true.
that's
you know what I've noticed, being here for 4 years, where the inflation really hit in Poland was on everyday goods. So my friends came over a few months ago for a weekend, and in the supermarkets, they said, gee, the cheese here is almost as expensive as in the UK. So a lot of the price increases in inflation here have been everyday costs. So shopping goods, your veg and your meat and your cheeses. Also, energy prices are very expensive here. But some things here are very relatively cheap. Petrol, because they don't tax it as much. Cigarettes are £3 for a pack of 20. So if you're a smoker in the UK, you'll be gutted. And
but do you notice that people in Poland smoke more?
I think the culture, I was going to come on to this, is the main reason for my call. The culture is very different. It's in some ways it's more tight and right, you'd say right wing or strict in cultural ways. So they're very much more Catholic. The traditions of the church rule a lot. Anti-abortion law is very famously strict in Poland. But on the other hand, there are a load of things that are very free, relaxed. I mean, I'd say in terms of road law, they're very. I mean, some parts they've tightened road law recently, because I think Poland had the worst record of road deaths in Europe. But they're very strict on some things, Nick, and they're very relaxed on others. So they allow people. They tax cigarettes very low, petrol very low. There's no ULEZ system or anything close to that anywhere, even in Warsaw. You get diesels everywhere, and there's still a big coal industry running here. So it's weird. It's half of it's very much, relaxed and not keeping up with what I'd say, keeping up with the times in some ways, but in some ways they're very strict.
What was the purpose of your call, though?
Yeah. Sorry, we're just rambling. I called more about what's going on, looking from the outside into the UK on the civil unrest, the riots. I remember the riots that started in Brixton and Clapham when I was still in London, and that shocked me. It feels a bit like that's brewing again, where it feels to me like living here, the culture of the UK is so different. There's almost like a superiority complex that runs through the whole class system. It goes from upper class down to the working class, that Britain have never been conquered, invaded. We won the World War. Honestly, this is what I think is going on. And I think that people don't really know what hard times are like, and they don't know how to react to it. So there's always someone to blame. Now, I'm not saying the Tories are innocent here, because they're not. I'm not a Tory voter at all. And they've squeezed and squeezed the public so much. But what happens in Poland, I've noticed in these situations where times are hard, is communities get together. They really rely on the church. I think it's a 90-something% Catholic prevalence, and I'm not, in the UK you might say, well, we've got Church of England, but a lot of Church of England on paper don't go to church every Sunday. Now these guys here go to church every Sunday. It keeps them rooted. They have respect for the law. They have respect for the government. They respect everything, and I think it works both ways. Whereas in the UK, there's so much distrust in the government, the powers that be, the police, and the people think they deserve. They don't deserve to have immigrants coming over. Well, do you know, we had 8 million Ukrainians come here. 8 million when the war started. And 4 million of them stayed. I think 4 million of them roughly went on to Germany, Holland and other places.
Yeah.
And the Polish, I don't remember one riot or far-right, rally against the Ukrainians coming. Now, I know it's different. They're a neighbouring country and it's a land border, not a sea border. But the culture's just different here. The Poles have had it rough, and I think they react to hard times much better than the Brits. That's my opinion, and I'm included in that. I'm a softie. I think if I was still in the UK, I wouldn't enjoy what's going on at the moment, but I definitely wouldn't go rioting.
No. Yeah, well, I don't really know how to come at you, because you gave me such a lot of information there. I mean, partly it seemed like you were saying that having not necessarily Catholic, but having a religious belief would insulate you from these feelings of feeling, down or on the outside, or being a stranger in your own land, and all of these things. And I would question that. I don't really believe that going to church on a Sunday makes you a good person. I don't buy that.
I don't know. No, I wouldn't say it's that. I'm not saying it makes them good. I believe it takes up so much of their day-to-day and weekly life. They're rooted in it. Honestly,
got no time to think of anything else.
It feels like it gives them a sense of respect that is very deep and rooted in the fact that the church and the government, I don't know, this is my gut feeling of living here for 4 years, and I'm not saying they wouldn't protest and riot if things did come in that were hard. So there was a very big protest against the abortion laws that came in a few years ago, and there were millions on the street for that. But there were no chairs thrown, bottles thrown, police abused, no physical violence, no knife attacks, no one died, right? So they did it properly. But I'm just saying. Yeah, well,
most of the time we do it properly as well. I think that people have the tendency to see what is happening now and just make that the story of the country. It isn't. This is. I maintain that this is a blip. All of the things that you just described, the riots that used to have happened in this country before, they were blips too. The Brixton is not still on fire. It happened. They blew off steam. Whoever it was that caused it and could be nabbed by the law were dealt with. And, you patch up and you move on. This is not our story now. This is not who we are. This is not what Britain is. It'll happen for a while, and then it will dissipate, and then we'll get on with it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm just saying it doesn't happen often, but remember Joe Cox? There are so many far-right loonies lurking just under the surface.
Well, it's the same number as there are every country in Europe. I get that, but it's the same number as it always has been. All of the far-right parties have they've come and they've gone, and they peaked at about the same number. It's like 10 to 14%, something like that, every single one of them, and then they just fizzle out. Those people they're not going away, and they're not getting any larger in number. It's the same as they've always been. And every now and then they blow a gasket, and this kind of thing happens, and then we just move on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought it would be interesting to compare the cultures.
Yeah. Okay, good work. Thanks a lot, Tom. Appreciate that. This is I just mentioned that a lot of inflation was caused by profiteering. Oxfam found that 95 food and energy corporations more than doubled their profits in 2022. Doubled. They made $306 billion in windfall profits, by which they mean they made $306 billion more than they had expected they would make and could possibly have dreamt of in their wildest imagination. $306 billion is just 95 food and energy corporations in 1 year, and they paid out 84% of that to rich shareholders. Excess corporate profits have driven at least half of the inflation that we just experienced, and in Australia and in the US. Half of the inflation that we've just gone through was excess corporate profits. In other words, they took the money from us, all of us, who can barely get by, and they gave it to themselves. The gulf between the rich and the rest of the UK can be summed up like this. The richest 1% of people in this country hold more wealth than 70% of us. 1% own more wealth than 70%. Now, you can't tell me that there is not an element of this in what we're seeing today, because if those people had some
this is by no means an excuse, but if they had a job, for instance, if they had some hope, if they weren't working all the time and getting nowhere, then they wouldn't feel as though somebody is holding them down, and try to find some identifiable group of people that they can blame for their bad luck. But and it's always people on the below you on the ladder of life, because it's much easier to kick down than it is to punch up. And the people above you on the ladder of life, well, they have enough money to insulate themselves from whatever you might like to throw at them. They're getting away with it and distracting you by trying to make you furious at people who don't have any hand in the problem, who are suffering just along with the rest of us, just barely trying to get by. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
This is LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Here are the studio calls flashing up on the indicator.
Yes, let's have one in, let me see now, Tooting. Hello, Jan.
Hi, good evening, Nick.
Yes, Jan.
Hi. Yeah, so I have a few points to make about this. Although it's so disturbing and really distressing, there are some heartening aspects to it, because the way some communities have rallied around, got together.
Yeah.
And after the violence. But what I wanted to say was that this apparently, it seems that there's far more anticipate. I mean, it's been suggested that there's far more rallies. These far right rallies are planned. Not just 19, but some groups or I don't know whether they're saying it could be as many as 35 more rallies planned around the country. And what the problem is part of the problem is that they want to treat these as the thuggery the thugs that are in the forefront. The government or they want to treat them like they're football hooligans.
I mean, some news outlets are calling them protesters. Do me a favour. They're not protesters. They're terrorists.
Yeah, they're rioters. You're legally allowed in this country to protest, and you can get notice from the police.
This is not a protest. This seems like a terrorist attack. Tell me why it's not a terrorist attack.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, look, they say that. Even say that this Online Safety Act hasn't come, how are they going to track what they're doing? Because when the Online Safety Act doesn't come through till next April, whereby the platforms could be fined as much as 18 million if they're allowing illegal content. And
well, they're going to have to fine them a lot more than that. They ain't going to notice 18 million.
Yeah, and anyway, Elon Musk, he's supporting a lot of these terrible, these. Well, anyway.
Well, what he's doing is he would say he's allowing free speech, so he's not necessarily supporting anybody.
Free speech, yeah. Well, yeah, but he supports Trump, doesn't he?
That's
he's
true.
also Trump. But the thing is that what is worrying is that so it's going to be very hard to track them, and all these so-called these far right football hooligans, let's call that as a nickname. I mean, they're going around in balaclavas, masks, so they're not going to be able to get.
They're not football hooligans, Jan. They're terrorists.
Yeah, okay, they're not being able to get facial recognition software. They're not going to be able to track them like they would like to. And of course, they're using, what do you call it, those encrypted messaging amongst themselves online.
You seem to be hyperventilating at the end of civilization as we know it. None of that is true. They can identify people just by collaring them and putting them in the back of a van. Doesn't matter whether they're wearing a mask or not. If they're appearing before a judge, then they will have to take the mask off.
But Nick, look what happened in some of those scenarios where the police were trying to form a barrier between these thugs and the anti-fascist groups, and the police got really badly treated because they weren't properly equipped to deal with the riot. What was a riot?
Right,
so quite a lot of them got injured. But what and of course another point I want to make is that it's triggered off this. The Islamophobia behind it is really frightening. The mosques, they're trying to see how to protect the mosques. I mean, the Muslims are feeling very threatened, and that's not going to go away because that was there before. Islamophobia isn't going to go away. Like the fascists aren't going to go away. Look, there's a rise of fascism throughout Europe, isn't there?
Well, you could say that, but I would also maintain that it's the same number of people that have always been there, and they've always had the same views, and in certain periods it's been acceptable to express those views out loud, and then they get tamped down and becomes unacceptable to express those views. And so they grumble and they shuffle about their lives and until there's an opportunity to express themselves again, and that's what we've got at the moment. But I have to draw a line at this this sort of talk as though this is the end of everything that we hold dear. It's not. We've had riots in this country before, and we just pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves down, and we carry on. Thanks a lot, Jan. 0345 6060 973. Dino text, the morons held a protest in Doncaster attended by a grand total of one person. One, says Dino. Dominic text, these thugs grew up somewhere in society, somewhere in Britain. How did that happen? They're everywhere, Dominic. It's just that you ordinarily don't notice them. I mean, you wouldn't want to sit next to one on a train, for instance, so you don't. You see a group of them coming down the road towards you, and you suddenly have business on the other side of the road. You don't engage them in conversation because they're not your type of person. And so you go through life not really having much idea that they're there. And then suddenly they're on your television, and some reporter is sticking a microphone in their face, and they're expressing themselves in grunts. And it's actually amazing how little intelligence it takes to be able to negotiate your way through the day, to actually live that long. It's amazing, really, that so many of them have managed it. John says, young people can't afford to rent, let alone buy a property. They can't get good paying jobs. They have mental health problems. Many, in effect, are outside of normal society. So why are we surprised at these riots when we treat the young so poorly? Well, that's part of what I'm talking about, is that the wealth, essentially the richest people on earth have stolen the wealth that all of us have created. That if we were still distributing the wealth that all of us create in the same reasonable way that we used to in the 1960s and early 70s, then we'd all be significantly better off. I mean, I've got, this is a study that they did in America, but everything that happened in America in this regard happened here too. So I'll give you a taste of where we should be as regards the wealth that has been created and where we actually are. There's no other way of looking at it, really. The richest people in the world have stolen our money. I mean, tell it to me any other way that half of the inflation that we have just experienced is down to corporate profits, profiteering. Already rich people making so much money that they had no idea was coming their way and gleefully raking it in. Just 95 companies have doubled their profits and have caused, half of the inflation that we've just gone through. Excess corporate profits. The super rich rewarding themselves with money they didn't earn, they just took it from us. They just put the price up of their goods, and they all did it in consort as well. So we didn't actually have a choice. I mean, what about that doesn't sound criminal? Profiteering in times of war would be a jailable offence. 0345 6060 973, text 84850, email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. It's 11:30 on LBC. News headlines with Tim Daly.
Nick Abbott. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Are you trying to tell me that this is your act?
Well, it's a little more serious than most of my Friday and Saturday night shows. OK, this was in Time magazine 4 years ago, and keep in mind that the situation that I'm about to describe has got much, much worse in the intervening period, since 2020. A staggering $50 trillion is how much the upward redistribution of income has cost American workers over the past several decades. What that means is trickle-up economics, like George W. Bush used to say.
Absolutely.
George W. Bush and Reagan and Thatcher, they were all about trickle-up economics. We'll give tax cuts to the rich, and then the money will cascade down to us, the little people, not leprechauns. Of course, that never happened. It never will happen. It's impossible. No such thing will ever happen anywhere it will be tried or has been tried. Trickle-up economics is what happens from the little people to the rich. And it's $50 trillion, not million, not billion, trillion. Over the past several decades is what just American workers have lost. A rising tide most definitely did not lift all the boats. It didn't even lift most of them, as nearly all of the benefits of growth for the past 45 years have been captured by those at the very top. And as the American economy grows radically unequal, it is holding back economic growth itself. From 1947 to 1974, those at the bottom and the middle of the distribution of income saw their incomes grow at about the same rate as those at the top. This was the era in which America built the world's largest and most prosperous middle class, an era in which inequality between income groups steadily shrank. But around 1975, this extraordinary era of broadly shared prosperity came to an end. And they're talking about America, but the exact same thing at the exact same time happened here. Because Reagan and Thatcher were in consort with each other. I mean, it was a plan for both sides of the Atlantic. And so what America experienced, we experienced, but worse, because we're poorer than them, significantly so, on average. Around 1975, this extraordinary era of broadly shared prosperity came to an end. Since then, the wealthiest Americans, particularly those in the top 1% and 0.1%, have managed to capture an ever larger share of the nation's economic growth. In fact, almost all of it. Their real incomes skyrocketing as the vast majority of Americans saw little, if any, gains. What if American prosperity had continued to be broadly shared? How much more would a typical worker be earning today? Well, at every income level up to the 90th percentile, in other words, the bottom 90% of workers, wage earners are now being paid a fraction of what they would have had if inequality had been held constant. For example, the median individual income of $36,000, which is about, in pounds, what they say the median income is in this country, although I would suggest that for most people it's less than that, but let's go with 36,000. It means that if the wealth that had been created had been shared as equally as it was in the early 1970s and the 60s, then people would not be earning 36,000, they would be earning 57,000. The 21,000 difference has been taken by those at the very top of the wealth distribution. But they say this actually understates the impact of rising inequality on low and middle income workers, because much of the gains at the bottom of the distribution were largely driven by an increase in hours, not an increase in wages. So people worked harder for less. They said, unlike the growth patterns in the 1950s and 60s, the majority of full-time workers did not share in the economic growth of the last 40 years. Tell me that this is not behind some of not the riots, because that's a different thing, really, but just the general feeling of not being able to get along, not being able to get on, not being able to improve your life. You're working flat out and you're going nowhere. It's almost as though you're walking the wrong way on an escalator, spending a lot of energy and effort getting nowhere. half of all full-time workers now earn less than half what they would have had if incomes across the distribution continued to keep pace with economic growth. And that's per worker, not per household. Half of all full-time workers, that's below the income of $50,000 a year, now earn less than half what they would have had if incomes across the distribution continue to keep pace. So we're making a lot of money through our work. Corporations are making money through the work of thousands of people. You know, companies, small companies are making money through the work of tens or hundreds of people. And all of that wealth is disappearing. This dramatic redistribution of income from the majority of workers to those at the very top is so complete that even at the 95th percentile, in other words, the 95th, the top 5%, in other words, even there, most workers are still earning less than they would have if inequality had held constant. It's only at the 99th percentile, the 1% richest people, that we see incomes growing faster than economic growth. Isn't that incredible? Only the 1% have seen their incomes grow faster than the economic growth of the country. Everybody else lost out so they can make out like bandits. And the iron rule of market economics is that we all do better when we all do better. When workers have more money, businesses have more customers, they hire more workers. 70% of the economy is dependent on consumer spending. But as wages stagnated after 1975, so did consumer demand. And as demand slowed, so did the economy. They said this is an America in which 40% of households can't cover a $400 emergency expense. Same here. This is an America in which 28 million people have no health insurance. Well, at least we got the NHS. And in which 44 million underinsured Americans can't afford the deductibles or the co-pays to use the insurance they have. This upward redistribution of income, wealth and power was not inevitable, it was a choice. A direct result of the trickle-down policies that we chose to implement since 1975. Reagan did it in America, Thatcher did it here. And every Tory government since has pulled the same trick. We chose to cut tax on billionaires and to deregulate the financial industry. We chose to allow chief executive officers to manipulate share prices through stock buybacks and to lavishly reward themselves with the proceeds. We chose to permit giant corporations through mergers and acquisitions to accumulate the vast monopoly power necessary to dictate both prices charged and wages paid. We chose to erode the minimum wage and the overtime threshold and the bargaining power of labour. For 4 decades, we chose to elect political leaders who put the material interests of the rich and the powerful above those of the American people and the people in this country. Tell me that that is not a fundamental part of what we're looking at here. 0345 6060 973. Belsize Park. Hello, Judy.
Oh, my God. It's just... Right, I'm sorry, I'm going to add to this. I'm ringing response to Annie from Carnforth.
Yeah.
And I'm almost loath to say anything, and in which case you could say, well, then put the phone down and don't say anything.
Okay.
Because I don't want to give them ideas. But we've been told that a lot of people are going to lose out on the £100 heating allowance.
Right.
What they haven't mentioned is what are they going to do about the £10 Christmas bonus, which I think they've all forgotten about, and that's why I was loath to mention it, because I never, ever, ever hear it mentioned. I have got a theory. I know nothing about computers, but I've got a theory that when we all switched to computers, the £10 Christmas bonus that automatically went out to all pensioners since 1972 just got kind of slid onto a computer, and they've all forgotten about it. And when it was instigated, I was no near being a pensioner. Now I am well into being a pensioner.
And when they you know what? I've never heard of this. When they instigated it in 1970, when they instigated it in 1972, was it £10?
Yes.
And it's still £10?
Yes, but
well, that's ridiculous.
No. In £10, it was worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And in £10, it was given us for what they called a normal family. I don't know what a normal family is, but I think in 1972 they reckoned it was four people.
Yeah, man, wife, 2 kids, yeah.
Man, wife, 2 kids. And it could buy you a turkey, and it could buy you a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And
it could buy you Merry Christmas, everybody, by Slade.
Well, yeah.
Was it Slade who sang that? Merry Christmas. Here it is, Merry Christmas. Yes. Sing.
But I am really worried that now I've mentioned it, somebody is going to pick up on this and say, oh, my God, we didn't...
we forgot about that.
We forgot about that.
Thanks, Judy. We'll take that.
But, so now I'm giving you homework, and I know, it's weekend, but can you do some research into this?
Absolutely.
And could you find out exactly what is happening with this? Because, as I say, it came in 72, there were no computers in regular use, and I've got this weird feeling, I'm sorry I'm repeating everything, that it's kind of slid through into a computer.
But honestly, £10, it's not something that you would pass by on the street. If you saw a £10 note, you would bend down to pick it up. But are people really going to miss £10 over the course of a whole year? That's ridiculous. That's not a Christmas bonus. That's a Christmas insult.
But in 1972,
of course.
Is what I want you to check.
Yes, that would have made a big difference. Yes, in 1972.
Yeah, that would have made a difference. And it's so. But even so, if they are taking 100, they're not taking 100. If they take that, they're taking 110.
Right.
But they haven't mentioned it.
Yeah.
So are they going to just slide it off with 100 and say we're all half-witted idiots? We should have known. Obviously, it would all be included. Or is somebody in the government listening to your programme, their ears are going to prick up, they're going to be on the phone to the lovely Rachel, and
you know
say, quick,
exactly.
slap it on.
And they're going to call it the Judy deduction.
So I don't know if I should have mentioned it or not.
No, I think you should have kept it to yourself, but it's too late now.
Well, can you check all this?
No, I definitely will do nothing of the sort. No.
I think it will be a public service for you to find out. Because I don't know how to find out, and I don't know people in high places.
Well, I don't have any people either.
Well, could somebody listening... But they'll say that they always... they won't say, oh, my God, we'd forgotten all about it.
But £10, I mean, that if it's still £10...
Yes.
And again, I've never heard of this, but if it is still £10, then that's how is that going to benefit your Christmas? Really? I mean, it's not going to get you a box of crackers.
Shall I tell you something else, Ernie? I know you're coming up to a break.
Yeah.
When I was 79 3/4, I got a letter from the government on lovely embossed paper telling me that because I was turning 80, there'd be an increase in my pension.
Oh.
And a week later, I got another letter, all embossed and all lovely and costing Christ, goodness knows what, sending in the post, telling me my pension after my birthday, which is in March, would then have this magnificent extra sum.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask Judy because I'm on the edge of my seat. How much was it?
25
pounds.
Pence.
25 pence. Well, I hope you didn't spend it all in the same shop.
I didn't tell my husband because he's younger than me and I didn't want him trying to get hold of half of it. But can I just say, anybody now, 79, you're doing okay because very shortly you'll be getting a letter telling you that when you hit 80, you're going to get 25 pence.
You'll be in the money. Yeah. As soon as you turn 80, that's something to look forward to. Excellent work, Judy. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Thank you for holding. Your call is important to us.
Your call is important to us. Fraz in Durham.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Yes, Fraz.
Hi, I just wanted to address the recent attacks on mosques across the UK, and in particular the attempted attack on the one in Hartlepool, which is, whilst I'm at university, my local mosque, and one which, as such, I frequent quite often. Look, I mean, it's deeply troubling, and I think it's a stark indicator of perhaps a rising tide of bigotry and intolerance within the UK. And I think, these attempted acts of vandalism, they're more than just physical damage. They represent an assault on the very sanctuaries where we as Muslims, we seek refuge and community. And I think the effect of these attacks cannot be underestimated. For Muslims, mosques are not merely buildings. For us, they are community centres where we connect with our faith, our Creator, and it's where we build relationships and seek support. And when these places are attacked, or people attempt to attack them, it does send a message of fear and a division through the entire community. And I think the emotional toll of that is significant. I mean, personally, for myself, my father came to this country as an asylum seeker, looking to escape persecution, find, the freedom of speech, which is valued so greatly in the UK. And I think at times, when I scroll the news and I watch the headlines, I find myself struggling to reconcile with the UK of today. And the rising attacks and hostility, they sort of make me question whether those fundamental values of tolerance and acceptance which drew my father to this country, whether they're still upheld. And it seems sometimes that these principles are being undermined by a certain minority, which seems to get a lot of airtime.
Yeah, bingo. You just said it. I mean, what you said up to that point is what a lot of people are doing. It's almost like you're holding your head in your hands, and we're essentially giving up in much the same way as England gave up its flag to people with swastika tattoos, which seemed extraordinary to me. I can't think of any other country that would just gift its flag and feel embarrassed to fly it because other people had sort of taken it from them. I mean, can you imagine that happening in America? You'd be met with a stern response. No such thing would be possible to happen there. But we do have a tendency to think, oh, God, it's all so awful, and just sort of wallow in misery and gloom. These people these people are a minority. That's exactly what you just said. A tiny minority. It's just that they're shouting very loudly.
Of course, Nick, you're absolutely right. And I think what's particularly heartening and what makes me have hope is the community response that we've seen in all sorts of areas across the UK. Yeah. I think we saw in Southport the local community rallied together. They rebuilt and restored the mosque. In Hartlepool, we've seen that there was a fundraiser organised by a friend of the mosque, which has raised, last I checked, £11,000. And I think, frankly, the Hartlepool mosque that I visit as well, last year, it gave £25,000 to the British Legion through the sale of poppies. It's, in recent years, donated over 30,000 meals for hungry people in Hartlepool. Yes. And I think, it's... I don't know what...
We're fundamentally decent people. It's just that the decent people don't express themselves in such an eye-catching way, and this is why it's all over the media. And there's more misery in the world than we're looking at now. There's way more serious things that are happening in the world. There's millions of people who are actually dying of starvation. And we're concentrating on a few morons who are setting fire to a shoe shop and who are doing what you've just described. This is not the end of the world. It's not the end of this country. It's not people who are taking over. This is not our future. We're not going to be looking at this in a month's time. It's just not going to be happening. These people are going to blow their top, and then they'll just go back to whatever stone they came from under and try to struggle on and blame the same people. It doesn't really matter. But we will move on. I mean, this is... We've been through this kind of thing before, and this sort of... we're in like a doom loop. As soon as we see something bad happening in one of our towns or in society, it's like there's just too many of us who think, oh God, well that's that then. It isn't. That's not it. It's not who we are, and it's not our future. We've turned a corner. We've got rid of a group of people who are running this country into the ground for their own financial gain and political reasons, and we're rid of them. I mean, they still talk, which is extraordinary to me. Every time one of them crops up on TV, I think, are you still talking? And they are. Full of their own self-importance they are. That hasn't changed. But they're not in power anymore. So take the positive and put the negative behind us as much as we can while it's going on, because it's not going to be like this for a very long time. This is not our future. They're not taking over. We're not in the minority, Fraz. There's a vast majority of people in this country are decent and honest and honourable and good people. We just got a lot of morons here, that's all. But that's the case everywhere. That's just human beings. You know, some of us are more evolved than others, that's all. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Anna texts, thank you. I was getting quite depressed about it all. I'll cheer up now, says Anna. Yeah, that's the ticket. Phil says, Labour have been in power for about 5 minutes. They've not had the time to effect change. It takes months to get the legislation through. Yeah, and years for the legislation to take effect. I mean, they're not going to turn around this ship anytime soon. It's a supertanker, not a speedboat. It's going to take a long while for things to get better. But at least, the Labour Party is not perfect. Even for people who are, Labour through and through. They're not everything that you could have dreamed would be the case with a new Labour government. But it's a hell of a lot better than what we've been suffering through, isn't it? So let's bank that. We're moving forward towards the light, not towards the dark. There's nothing that these people who are rioting, who are terrorising neighbourhoods, which makes them, in my eyes, terrorists and should be dealt with accordingly. There's nothing that those people can do about that. They can't reset the nation. They can't direct they can't determine the direction of this country. There's more of us than there are of them. Let's stop freaking out about it. I mean, we'll take it very seriously while it's happening, and but with the certainty that it won't be happening for very long. Claire says, I was so moved to hear Assad on your show. The one thing we never hear is how lucky we are to have international people want to come and live with us. International neighbours, we are lucky to have you, says Claire. Well, that is indisputable that we're lucky to have them, because if immigrants weren't here, then we would certainly feel it financially. I mean, it's bad enough that the super rich have taken all of our money. But we are so much better off as a nation that people have decided to come here and actually work harder and pay more taxes than your average Brit does. If some people really do feel that the country is full and we want to get rid of some freeloaders, as they might put it, then it's not the people who have come here from other countries that they would want to get rid of. I would suggest that it's the people that are on the news right now. 0345 6060 973. Chris says, these riots are different from anything before. Firstly, they're being manipulated by social media accounts. Secondly, it's being fueled by constant live videos reinforcing their behaviour, like it's entertainment. Not to mention, they know there's no prison cells to lock them up. Oh, well, they'll be able to find prison cells to lock them up. Don't worry about that. If, when needs must, absolutely. But you're right about the constant news feed of all of this, but they are essentially just the same as they were before the invention of social media. It's just, people get a head of steam up and they go out and they have what amounts to fun for them. Relatively safe fun, confronting police officers and, passers-by. They're part of a gang, part of a crowd, so they can feel like tough guys as part of a crowd, and feel that there aren't any consequences to whatever they do. It's like playing a video game, like one of those smash-em-up video games, but in real life. But, real life will out in the end, as many of them are about to find out. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
I am not one of your fans!
Yeah! Dude! That was almost like a comical aside at the end of the news there. The government is going to pitch Britain as as a safe place to do business. Well, let's put the fire out in the shoe shop first, eh? Caroline says, what we need is some cold, wet weather. No one riots in the rain. Well, that's about right, yeah. Mike says, it is wealth inequality that they are protesting against. They may well be racist and unpleasant people, but I would also guess that they are not well off and have not benefited from the capitalist system, hence they are angry. It's not the capitalist system that is the problem. It's the twisted way in which capitalism has been made to work in this country and in America particularly. There's nothing wrong with capitalism per se. It's the twisted form of it that we've got here. It's like an oligarchism. All of the wealth created by the workers disappears from the workers. They don't share in any of the wealth that they create. It all goes to the very top. And it's not even the 1%, it's the 0.1%. You could fit those people on a bus. Let's see now. This text says, I feel a lot more emphasis about education regarding issues of religion and different races should be done. That way, hopefully in the future, we will have a lot more tolerance and increased unity in the UK. I think we have an enormous amount of tolerance and unity in the UK, and the more you are, the more foreigners or immigrants that there are in a place, the more tolerant and unified that place seems to be. I mean, London, for instance. London did not vote for Brexit. For instance, Londoners do not protest about small boats. The tiny issue of the people coming in on the boats, which is utterly insignificant. And so those people that are protesting about it, they're not actually protesting about that. They're just using it as an excuse. It's like, I'll do the Marlon Brando thing again, in The Wild Ones. Like, what are you protesting about? And his answer is, well, what do you got? Don't try to understand them. There's nothing to understand. Don't look for subtleties in their political arguments. There aren't any. Winchester, Simon.
Good evening, Nick.
Simon.
I've got a few things to discuss with yourself.
Yes.
First of all, racists. Now, I've been listening. I would have more respect for racists if they were honest about who and what they are. I've been listening to people ringing in LBC for the last 3 or 4 days now, bending themselves out of shape to tell the presenters how they feel and why they are protesting, etc., etc., etc. Right. The one thing that they will not admit to is the fact that they are racist.
I bet a lot of them use the following sentence: "I'm not racist, but."
Yeah. And I've got black friends.
Yeah.
But the thing is, right? If you're a racist, own it. At least we know what we're working with then, right? You know, if you are that way inclined, own it. And then if you don't want to be a racist because you say you're not, then you can take steps to not be a racist.
Yeah, I don't think it's an either or. You know, racism is based in the survival instinct. You are instinctively fearful of those of what you don't understand and don't have an experience of. And so that you could say spiders, snakes, doors slamming in the night, ghosts, all that sort of thing, and also different races or people of different culture. You don't have much experience of them, so your instinctual fear, I'm not necessarily talking about your overt actions, but your instinctual feeling, your first, most basic sense is fear. Until you know that you are safe, then your initial instinct is fight or flight. Now, civilization is supposed to smooth out the edges. It's just that some people are more civilized than others, and it's what you do with that instinctual fear that marks you out as a good citizen or not, depending.
I just think, I grew up. I was born and raised in Luton, so I was brought up amongst. I couldn't even begin to think about how many different cultures and nationalities. Yeah. And it enriched my life. And I moved to Southampton, which is very white and pale and stale, and they just have got no idea what they're missing out. Anyway,
yes.
So look, I got two other things. Do you want Olympics or do you want Donald Trump? And I've got a present for you.
Ooh, am I going to like it?
You're going to love it. I'm just hoping you haven't had it already.
Now, when you say present, do you mean an actual physical thing that I can touch and feel and hold and sniff?
You see, you would call it homework.
Oh.
But if you get over your phobia of doing homework and you actually do look at this present that I'm going to give you,
right,
you are going to...
So wait a minute. So let me get this straight. You're giving me something, but what you're giving me is work.
Well, it's either that or come up to the studio to show you, and I'm not going to do that.
All right, give me the Olympics.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because that's like an aside to the main thing with the present attached. Bronze and silver medals. Can we do away with them?
Huh?
Well, you see. I guess my autism sort of going a bit mad here, but basically what they're saying is that if you win bronze or silver, you're basically saying, here's a medal you lost.
Yeah, you're the first and second loser.
Yeah. Whereas they could actually forget gold as well, just have a medal for the winner. Or for the first three winners. Just doesn't have to be in a graduated...
value.
Total of losality.
Wow. Nobody has ever said that sentence before, nor ever will again.
No, not even me. So anyway, that's what I want to say.
Well, I understand. Now. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but put yourself in the position of an Olympian. You're one of the best people on earth that has ever lived at your chosen speciality. And,
but not the best.
Yeah, but by the breadth of a hair, by the length of a fingernail, by the tiniest margin, breath out when you should have breathed in. Mm-hmm. You missed out on the gold, and so you get nothing for 8 or 12 years of training? That doesn't seem fair.
Oh, but just if I had to look at bronze or silver, I would be just...
Are you kidding me? If I had a bronze medal in the Olympics for anything, for standing in line at McDonald's, then I would cherish it for the rest of my life. I would. I'd use it as a door knocker.
I'd just put mine on eBay, I think. Now, can I get to the present?
Yeah, get to the point. Yeah, go on.
I'm going to link two things here. So first of all, there is Project 2025.
When you said present, I thought you meant up to date. But we're still talking about my gift. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm all ears.
Yeah, right. I'm building up to that now. So right, Project 2025.
Yes,
is an entity that appeared online. Somebody leaked it, and gathering more and more pace. Well, there's a new one now.
Donald Trump let the cat out of the bag by saying that Christians should go and vote just this once, and you won't have to vote again because we're going to fix it. Those were pretty much his exact words. And then, of course, he's trying to row back and no, he didn't mean that. And sure, Donny. Mm-hmm.
But this has led people to ask why he's so complacent. And they've worked it out. And this is getting to be, mark my words.
What do you mean?
Going to be big.
Hang on a minute. Complacent?
Right.
What do you mean?
Well, because he says, don't worry, you're never going to have to vote again.
Yeah.
And it's led people to question as to why he's saying that as opposed to why he's not throwing a tantrum. And people have started to realise and ask
why would he throw a tantrum, though? Because the idea of Project 2025 is to install him essentially as a dictator.
Yeah, but he's been trying to distance himself from that because he knows that people won't go for it.
His fans will go for it. They're desperate for him to become a dictator.
Yeah, but they're in a minority. He needs other votes.
Okay.
Listen, so the next one is this. They've worked out that because of the way he's been acting, they've led to question him. And they've worked out that he's actually got all of the framework in place now to rig the election. So you've got the Supreme Court that would rule in his favour. Mm-hmm. You've got a vice president that, unlike Mike Pence, would certify fake electors. And there are loads of fake electors been put in to the swing states. So they've worked it all out. This is getting to be a big story. And so basically, unless they actually get on top of this now, he's going to rig it. And it's going to go all in his favour.
Well, the one flaw in your argument there, Simon, is that he doesn't occupy the White House. It might have been more feasible if he did occupy the White House and all the power that comes with that. But on the outside, he doesn't have the full force of the government behind him. And anybody that tries to miscount an election and say that it wasn't Kamala Harris that won, it was actually Donald Trump, when the evidence is contrary to that, they're going to be in lawsuits. They're going to be sued into a black hole in space. This is another one of those things where people are holding their head in their hands thinking, oh no, there goes the world and there's nothing that we can do about it. Oh, woe is me. Get your head out of this bucket of despair, Simon.
Right, here's your present, all right?
Go on.
You're going to love this. So, Pink Floyd, or rather Roger Waters.
Yes.
Now, are you aware of a gig that he did in Mexico City 1st of October 2016?
No, I am not.
Right, you're going to love this. If you go onto YouTube and type in Roger Waters, the song is called Pigs. Are you aware of the song Pigs?
Of course.
3 different ones? Right. Now, he plays live in front of a crowd of, well, just unbelievable. And whilst he's performing, he's got images of Trump scrolling along in a great big background, and Trump has been made up in drag, he's been made up in different sexual positions, he's been absolutely ridiculed. I could not believe it when I saw it. So there's your present, because if you want a good laugh, because they really are going for Trump, and it's just divine. You've got to watch it.
Right, Roger Waters.
Apart from that, it's an awesome performance.
Roger Waters, Mexico, when?
October the 1st, 2016, and it's Pigs, 3 different ones live.
Right, okay. All right, I'm going to give you homework now. Go watch River Plate AC/DC, one of the most astonishing things you'll ever see in your life.
I will look it up after I've listened to your show.
Good work. Thanks a lot, Simon. I'm going to repeat that. AC/DC at River Plate. It's on YouTube. It's incredible. I mean, even if you don't like AC/DC, it's just worth taking a peek just to see what the crowd is like. You will have never seen anything like it in your life. AC/DC, River Plate. You're welcome.
Thank you. LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What in blazes goes on inside that head of yours?
Oh, you know, this and that. Tyler says, this is a shamefully bad day for the UK in pretty much every way you can think of, says Tyler. I disagree. There's way more of us that are not doing it than there are of them who are doing it. This text says, I feel a lot more emphasis about education regarding issues of religion and different races should be done. That way, hopefully, the future will have a lot more tolerance and increased unity in the UK. Pretty sure I've read that one already. Barbara says, my state pension is £709 a month. I can't afford to lose my winter fuel allowance. Yeah, the state pension in this country is a national embarrassment. It really is. It's abysmal. The safety net that we provide for people in this country is shockingly bad, considering the amount of money that we make as a country, how much wealth is in this country, and how bad the wealth distribution is. Tony says, let's get the tiny violins out for the pensioners. What about the young? Yeah, okay, but you're fighting the wrong people. Pensioners versus the young is not the fight that we should be having. It's all of us versus the 0.1% who have stolen all of the money that we've made over the past, over our entire lives. But man, I know when I say this sort of stuff, there's going to be a lot of people who are rolling their eyes going, oh, well, that's just the politics of envy, that is. And you might as well have been programmed like a robot.
Affirmative.
To come out with stuff like that. Vancouver, hello, Nick.
Oh, hi, Nick. Sorry for your troubles, UK. It looks remarkably like 1972 from my youth, watching from here. Yeah. But I was going to say, actually, you're talking about the 1%, and not even the 1%, the 0.1%.
Yeah.
But I would say it's worse in the UK than it is in America,
really?
Because if nothing else, in the US, the 1% is a meritocracy of greed. And they are, in fact, really, really smart businessmen, intellectuals. You get your Zuckerbergs, your Bezoses. And it changes every 20 years or so. You get a different 1% in America. Which is why they have the world's biggest companies. And those companies are all only about 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, your 1%, because I'm not there anymore, thank God, is a hereditary feudal 1% that never changes, that is dumber than a fence post and can't do business. So what they do is they just sell everything off slowly but surely, and they work in the city where there really isn't any skill needed. You just need to know everybody else and have grown up with them and gone to the same incredibly rich boarding school and have the same time and the same accent.
Well, I do agree that, but there is a lot of that in America. Rich families do pass down wealth, down the ages, and those who are in receipt of mummy and daddy's fortune don't necessarily have to work to keep it. So it's such a vast amount it is. So you've got the same kind of thing. I mean, you've got this the same sort of there's the names that we all know, the banking dynasties and the chocolate heirs and all of the rest, and the drug company heirs, and so it's kind of the same. It's just that the history doesn't go back as far as ours.
Well, I would disagree in the sense that, yes, you do have those rich families and they do pass their money on, but they don't pass on the influence. That they slowly slip down in the influence charts and are replaced by new money, because that's how America is. America is a country of the middle class. And so when you look at the sort of the titans of tech, those are all middle class kids. Those are all, they didn't come from a black sort of ghetto background, if you will. But they came from a middle-class background. None of them had parents that were exceptionally wealthy, and yet right now they're the richest people in the world, and they will be replaced, in the fullness of time. And what that gives America is it just gives it a constant stream of evolving companies from the petrochemical companies of the 19th century to the car companies of the mid 20th century to the tech companies now, kind of thing. America is always replacing its big companies with new, more technical companies, whereas Britain relies on the stock exchange. It has for the last 200 years. I was amazed to discover that most years Britain's biggest export is gold.
Yeah, that's right.
Metals.
Yeah, people should keep that in mind. When Brexiters go on television and they say, "Well, look at the exports that we're making after Brexit. They've shot up." What they're actually talking about is gold, and we're we take gold in from, say, Switzerland, and we store it for the world's super rich, and then we send it back out again to wherever it is that they need. So the wealth doesn't actually stay here. It's like cooking the books. And they keep saying this, and they know they're lying, but they hope that we don't know they're lying when they say that exports are up. They're talking about us bringing in gold, storing it in the Bank of England or wherever it might be, and then sending it back out again. That's what we call exports. That's what's gone up. Because people are, in times of economic strife, people are looking for a safe bet, and that's always gold, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually that the gold actually even ever makes it to England, because Canada and the UK's largest export almost every year is because we dig gold up here. It's everywhere. So Canada, when you look at the largest export from Canada to the UK, it's gold, and it's almost exactly the same on the way back. I don't think the gold actually leaves Canada. I think it's just sold on paper.
Right.
There's maybe 40 or 50 guys at the London Metal Exchange, because that's why gold is Britain's largest export and probably largest import as well.
Yeah.
And they're the middleman. And I'm sure they're doing really well because they're part of that 1% that we talk about. But there aren't very many. It's not a value-added industry. It's not like there's another 30 or 40,000 people at the London Metal Exchange making money from that. It's just about 30 or 40 guys that run the companies at the top.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think the gold goes anywhere. I think it's sold on paper into the UK and then sold back out again without ever moving.
Yeah, I think you may be right, and the wealth. What is certainly right is that the wealth does not stay here. We're essentially just middlemen. We bring it in, or we bring it in on paper. And then we send it back out again, and we call that an export. It's not. And what astonishes me is that all of these Tory Brexit apologists go on TV and they say, well, of course, Brexit is an enormous success because just look at our exports. And they know they're lying, but they know that that most of us don't know that they're lying. And it's absolutely infuriating.
Yes, and their children and grandchildren will be on TV in charge of the country. You know Johnson's kids will be upper grandees in the Tory party in 40 years' time.
No.
It never changes.
No, it can't happen.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Please let that not happen. Well, fortunately, with that hair, we could see him coming a mile away, so maybe we can draw the curtains and pretend we're not in.
Yeah, it's not like the average British voter is stupid enough to go for that again.
Well,
you mind what you're watching the average British voter do to the north of England. Right?
I wouldn't be so sure about that, Nick. But if you say that gold is absolutely everywhere in Canada, then can you pick me up at the airport? I'll bring my own axe and shovel. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, keep that in mind. When some oily charlatan Brexiteer tells you that our exports are up, what they're actually talking about is gold. We bring it in, either physically or on paper, and then we send it back out again, and we call that an export. And they know that. They know that they are dealing in misinformation. They're lying to our faces, right down the camera lens. It's just, I'm so glad that we turned a corner on those people, because it was just getting so dark, this country. It felt like we were in a tunnel and we were never going to see the end of it. There was never going to be the light at the end of the tunnel. And now we're out. And they're still yakking away. Furious that the British public is so stupid as to have given them their marching orders. And they're planning their return right enough, and it's up to us to make sure that that remains on their wish list. Reese says, "I'm not on the other side of what's going on at the moment." Oh, either. No, wait, I read that wrong. Reese says, "I'm not on either side of what is going on at the moment, but if you say there is such a few people carrying out these riots, then why on earth is there so many people doing it up and down the country?" Tiny number of people, Reese. There's 65-odd million people in this country. A minute fraction are on the news throwing bricks. There's way more of us than there are of them. It's just that they're shouting loudly. That's all. This says, I just want to say that I'm scared of what is happening. I have 2 little sons and I am the most scared about them. At the same time, it's heartwarming to see the support that others have shown, so I just wanted to thank you for that. Thank me. Prayers for the family of the little girls who were murdered. This should never, ever happen again. David says, I really think we all need to start taking the actions of Farage and Tice seriously. They're playing a dangerous game of incitement, which even they don't know where it'll end up. And let me see now. It's all very serious. If you're new to this show, it's not Friday and Saturday isn't normally like this. It's normally more amusing. But that's where we are this weekend. Next weekend, probably not. Samuel says, there's more of us than them. Some people are counting themselves as us, stoked up some of this division for political gain. Be careful how you think of us. Did any of that make sense? Shall I read it again?
No.
Okay. All right, then no. Raymond says, how many murders, how many perpetrators get off with no punishment? It's about rule of law. It's just a joke to be abused. Didn't really get that either. Let's try this one. Lucy says, I've been part of the counter-protest in Nottingham today. Their side was lots of high blood pressure, anger, bitterness and violence. Our side was love and unity and smiles. I met so many wonderful people and did you proud by teaching everyone the wokey-cokey. Good work, Lucy.
Okie dokie.
0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's 12:30, the news headlines with Tim Daly.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
0345 6060 973. Jonathan says, great analogy with the ladders. It's not the people below you that are pulling you down, it's the people above you on the ladder that are pushing you down. That's the analogy. He says, I'd suggest that if the rich don't come down the ladder to negotiate peace with those below will set the ladder on fire. And that is evidenced by current events. Ain't life grand? Well, I think that you got that wrong. I think that if the rich don't come down the ladder to negotiate peace, and they won't, because why would they, those below will saw off the rungs that they're standing on, which is what's happening now. They're not rioting in areas of great wealth. They're rioting in their own areas, in the kind of areas that even if they've travelled to get there, they're rioting in the kind of areas that they would live in. Georgia says, the problem is, Nick, these people are obsessed with so-called integration, but integration works both ways. These people don't engage with the people, not like them, then they look on social media and get radicalised. Same mentality of people who live in Spain and moan about no-go areas where people don't speak English. Yet they live in Britain, in little Britons within Spain and don't speak Spanish. No sense of irony, says Georgia. York, hello, Jan.
Hello, Nick. How are you tonight?
I am great, mate.
Good. I think it's a real shame that we got rid of those water cannons, don't you? Then we could have washed them off the street.
The Waffen Squirter 9000s.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to see that.
Well, what occurs to me is, I mean, the police are facing these people, and they're all, tough guys because the police are standing there with the shields, and so to them they don't look like human beings. They're not reacting. The rioters aren't reacting to the police like they're human beings. It's just this amorphous wall of blue.
Mm.
But what the army has are nets that I've seen these work. They're nets that are like compressed into a small tube, and you pull the firing pin, and the net explodes out of the tube and just spreads into the air, and then covers a large area. And anybody that happens to be in that area can't get away. They fall to the floor, completely helpless. Can they not use something like that?
Yeah, that seems like a brilliant idea, doesn't it?
Well,
Marvellous.
it's what occurs to me. I mean, nobody gets particularly hurt very much, but they do get caught.
Well, I don't mind if they do get hurt.
Right.
But, yeah, oh dear. I just can't stand looking at them. And another thing, why do they... So many of them stood there with the cameras, with the phones in the air, filming the flipping thing. Why?
Yeah.
What are they filming it for?
Well, because they want to put it on social media in order to get likes from people they don't know.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Yes.
Well,
I know.
There's no point in it, is there? No point in any of it, I don't think.
Well, let's not get despondent, because there's way more decent, good, helpful, positive people who are making a positive difference to this country than there are of those people, none of whom we would miss if they voluntarily decided to deport themselves to Rwanda.
Exactly.
Or wherever. They would not be missed. They are not who we are. So I just get kind of annoyed when people get this sort of holding their head in their hands. Oh, woe is us! This is that's our country gone sort of mentality. It's just it's not that bad.
Yeah, but I know. But wouldn't you like to see something really bad happen to them?
Yes.
Well, I mean, they just get away with it, don't they?
No, they won't. Well, they won't. I mean, they don't necessarily. Well, I can't see that that's true. No, I mean, there's a lot of people who've been arrested, and we already the courts have put down a marker. Holding up traffic will get you 5 years. Not even doing that. Talking about holding up traffic will get you 5 years. So these people should be sent away for a considerably longer period than that. And all eyes will be on the courts. They're not. Judges are not going to be able to get away with just smacking them on the back of the hand and asking them politely not to do it again.
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't bank on it.
No, well, I wouldn't bank on it either. But I'm living in expectation of that happening, Jan.
I'm not. I just don't think we're too soft, aren't we?
Are we?
Yeah, we are.
But we lock up more people than pretty much any other country in Europe. I'm not sure that that's true. I think we are addicted to punishment, actually. It's just...
Do you?
Yes. Explain the locking more of our citizens up than any other country in Europe. I think that's true. More, per head of population, I don't think there's another country in Europe that locks up more of its citizens. So, yes, we are addicted to punishment. It's just that no amount of punishment is enough, and people are forever complaining about stupid things like, all prisons are holiday camps, and it's just absolute nonsense. It's just some garbage that the right-wing press will come out with on a slow news day, and that will, rile up their irate fans, and it sells papers. But I think that we are quite a punitive country.
You should round this lot up and get them to clear up all the mess they made.
Right. Well, that does make sense. Yes.
Like,
I think there is. We're way past the time where a punishment should fit the crime. I mean, if you've done something stupid and you've knocked down a wall or something, and I'm not talking about the rioting that's going on now, but if you just, do some like mindless violence, then what would be the point of sending somebody to jail for 6 months for that? It doesn't benefit anybody. But if you put them to work to repair what they've broken, then A, they will be benefiting society, and B, they will actually have an appreciation of what it is that they broke in the first place.
Yeah. That's right. Are you hopeful?
Yeah, I am.
Are you?
I am hopeful, yes. I think that the human race overall, after Joe Biden dropped out of the race and Donald Trump looked like a loser, whereas the previous day we were all assuming that he was going to win the next election, and that was going to be a dark time that America and therefore the rest of the world was going to go through. So the light came through on that issue. France stared down its right-wing fanatics and came through and won that little skirmish.
And we waved ta-ta to the disreputable lot that used to be running this country. So, I think that we've stepped up a couple of steps into the light. I mean, we're not there yet, Jan. Things aren't perfect yet, but they will be. Don't
right. Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, okay. Maybe not perfect. I'll row back a bit on that. But better. There you go.
Better than it is now.
And it's better now than it was before. So, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Okay. Good work. Thanks a lot, Jan. Cheers, my dear. Chris says, riots on the streets, greedy billionaires, massive budget overspend on Rwanda policy. Another Tory leadership challenge is that is there nothing Meghan Markle will not do for attention. Yeah, thanks a lot, Meghan Markle. You see what you've done? Did not think that was going that way. Another Chris says, good British people are exemplary and the far-right thugs are not representative of the good British people who are the majority and the great human beings with good behaviour. Oh no, I thought that was the end of the sentence. It isn't. Great human beings with good behaviour, ethics, humanity and friendly, hard-working, honest, welcoming people. It should have been the end of the sentence, shouldn't it? He says, Muslims and people from immigrant backgrounds are working and paying taxes. They're actually working harder than your average Brit, and they're paying more taxes than your average Brit. That is indisputably true. I have detailed files, but it's getting a bit late on now to give them to you. This is from a study called Fiscal Effects of Immigration to the UK from the Centre for Research and Analysis of Migration at the University College London. I'll nutshell it for you. Immigrants from outside of the European Union made a net fiscal contribution of about £5.2 billion. That was in the year, the last one that they could get statistics for, and it was 2014. Immigrants from outside the EU countries made a net fiscal contribution of £5.2 billion, paying into the system 3% more than they took out. At the same time, the net fiscal contributions of European immigrants totaled £15 billion, with fiscal payments 64% higher than transfers received. By contrast, over the same period, native Brits made an overall negative fiscal contribution of £616 billion. In other words, if it weren't for immigrants working harder than we do and paying more taxes than we do and taking fewer benefits than we do, we'd be even more financially screwed than we are at the moment. 0345 6060 973. Let's see now. East Yorkshire. Derek.
Hey, Nick.
Derek.
Last time I spoke to you, it was Johnson's time. That's a while ago it was. He was from...
When Mr. Blobby was in number 10.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Blimey.
That's the one I was waiting for.
Yeah.
But you have... I was actually going to say, if you considered that the Just Stop Oil people got 5 years for a Zoom meeting...
Yeah. Yeah.
What sort of sentences are these people looking at? You know, there is like a certain irony, I think, to this Reform UK when you consider the former UKIP Brexit Party or whatever wanted us, a complaint about immigration when you consider, I think it was 2016 or something like that, net migration to this country was 250,000. I think last year it was 700,000. So who's to blame for all this when you think of it, really? It's Farage and his boys, isn't it?
I'm not sure that you could put that number at his door. I mean, we've gone through an extraordinary period of time with Afghanistan and Ukraine and Hong Kong. There was a lot of people coming from there. And about a third of the people that came were students, almost all of whom will leave after their studies. And if they don't, then they'll be doing good jobs, being paid high wages, and therefore paying a high amount of tax to the benefit of us all.
Yeah, but from the figures you've just said, the Eastern Europeans, the migration from the EU was net contributors to the country.
Yeah.
Whereas, but they wanted rid of these people. They wanted to get it under control, didn't they? They wanted to take back control. But in effect, they're stirring up people's anger over migration when really, you could. Okay,
we should be grateful. Yes, and if this country is full, and people have been saying that this country is full for 100 years, if it is full, then for the benefit of the nation, we should keep the people who are actually making a positive contribution, which would be the people that have come from the EU, particularly because they are, of all of the groups that have come here, they make financially the largest contribution, and they take the least in benefits. We should keep those people and lose the people that are on TV at the moment, on the news. If it's just a question of numbers, then those people aren't making a contribution at all. In fact, they're dragging us down. Like, if this country was a rowboat, then almost all of us are doing our bit. We're putting in a rowing shift. Those people on the news are sitting glumly in the back, digging holes in the hull and refusing to help. So let's jettison them over the side if the boat's getting too full.
Well, I thought, the Ascension Islands or the Falkland Islands?
Yeah.
I mean, well, why not?
Well, I hear they're lovely at this time of year.
Make them row there as well,
Yeah, repurpose those small boats, yeah.
Yeah, because if they're in prison places, then, if they get found guilty of rioting and damaging buildings and setting things on fire and all the rest of it, then, why not? Why not send them to the Ascension Islands or to the Falkland Islands and let them do 10 years over there? See what they think. I mean, they're very British, the Falkland Islands.
Well,
they could love it there.
I mean, exactly right. Yeah, they'll have no end of sheep for company. I mean, they act like them. They get on like a house on fire. All right, thanks a lot, Derek. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Come on, we're running late.
We are running late. This anonymous text says people aren't feeling like they're being heard. This is the problem. Everyone in the UK feels alienated by something, be it woke movements, migration, cost of living, change in government, and the anger people are feeling is somehow partly being translated into violence and a cycle of blame. Until the people all feel heard to some extent, anger will most likely continue. I disagree with much of what you said. I do not believe for a single solitary second that everyone in the UK feels alienated by something, particularly the things that you just mentioned. Woke movements, do me a favour. But people are justifiable in feeling as though that we're living in a country where there is no safety net. Most of the people in this country would not be able to cope with an unexpected £800 bill. That's absolutely incredible, isn't it? In this country.
In the schoolyard, where dreams take flight, we found love in the morning light. Hand in hand, we walk the halls, innocent hearts, heedless of our falls. Giggles and blushes under the old oak tree. In the innocence of youth, we felt so free. Innocent love, pure and true, like the morning dew shining anew. Hearts entwined in a tender dance. Innocent love, our sweet romance. Passing notes in class.
Bruce says, there's one thing that nobody mentions about the riots for a certain kind of person. This is great fun. Bruce, are you kidding me? I've been saying that all weekend. That's pretty much my major point. 6 hours I've been saying that. Hello? Is this thing on?
And Adam says, one person should not be able to earn more than 10 billion in value and wealth. Yes, correct, Amundo. That's right. 1% of Britons hold more wealth than 70% of the rest of us. 1% of us holds more wealth than 70%. That is obscene. And they have so much money that they can basically avoid taxes. They can certainly avoid inheritance tax. As you'll see, every time somebody who is spectacularly rich dies, they pass on their entire fortune without paying any tax. How do they do that? Because they're rich. Don't you try this at home, because you'll go to jail. Valerie says, nope. You have to have reasonable prices, otherwise people won't buy. Presumably trying to disprove my assertion, which is actually Oxfam's assertion, that food and energy corporations more than doubled their profits in 2022. Excess corporate profits have driven at least half of the inflation that we've just experienced in Australia, the US, and in the UK. And the thing about that, Valerie, is it makes sense until you realise how few companies provide the things that we rely on. I mean, they might not be monopolies, although water companies are, obviously, because we're the only country on earth that's ever been stupid enough to sell off our water as a monopoly to vested private interests and expect a good result. How's that working out?
Oh, fabulous.
Abysmally bad. But these companies, they can put up their prices. Obviously, they have done, and we keep buying from them because we have to. We don't have any option. And in a lot of cases, and a lot of products that we rely on, you'd have to say that there seems to be some collusion going on the part of the people that are selling us the products, because all of the prices seem to go up and down pretty much at the same time. And they don't compete with each other too much, just a little. I mean, one supermarket, for instance, will reduce the price of bread, and you think, oh, OK, well, we'll go and shop there. But then they've just jacked up the price of everything else. It's a loss leader to get you into the door. And a competing supermarket will lower the price of milk. And you think, oh, I'll go in there. But then they've done the exact same thing. So overall, they're sharing out the spoils, and we're having to pay because we're in a world now where there ain't that much choice. Let's see now. Kingsbury, David.
Hello, Nick. Yes. I think most governments aren't interested in this, but every person is. We all need to live somewhere, and the immovable object is the houses, because we all need to buy or rent. And in real terms, they've gone up 3 times in the last 30 years. So you'll be paying 3 times more for any house in Britain, well, certainly most of Britain, than you would have done 30 years ago. But the wages have barely kept up with what they were before. Yep. So we're now paying between about 80% of our monthly income on housing, up from historic 30 or 3 times the income.
And the evidence for that is all of our memories, because it used to be in the 1960s and 70s that your traditional family would be the mother and 2 kids at home, the mother doing the cooking and taking care of the home and, all the rest of that housewife stuff, and the one parent, the father, would go out and he would do a regular job for 40 hours a week, and he'd come home and he would own the house already at the age of about 40. He would have bought it when he was 20, 30 years old, and he would have paid it off by the time he was 40. That is a dream for people now.
So we're the first generation, new generation, that's worse off than the previous one.
Yes, that's right.
So basically, if they were to cut house prices by 50% overnight, we would all do well, because the only people that benefit from rising house prices are people who have more than one house, which are property developers or landlords.
Yeah.
Because they can keep one, live in it, and the other one, they're getting money from the rent, so they're paying somebody else's mortgage, the renters, and then after 10 years the house has doubled in price, and it'll be like putting it in a bank account with 10 or 20% interest, which doesn't exist in
Yes,
the real
and
world.
on a bigger scale, we're talking about landowners, and that's where the money really is in this country, and such a vanishingly few number of people own most of the land in this country. It's utterly obscene.
So what we actually need is, because no government would ever, Clive Bull always says this, no government, they can drop house prices by forcing interest rates up, reducing immigration, blocking mortgages over certain amount of income, but they won't do it because they know perfectly well that most people are under this illusion that my house is worth so much. But what they don't realise is that as soon as they have to sell it, the one they have to buy costs even more. They're not gaining anything. They feel so good. Oh, my house is worth £800,000. It's useless because unless you want to downsize, which most people don't.
Yes, that's right. Unless you want to downsize, unless you want to move from an expensive area to a less expensive one, which is what a lot of people want to do when they retire. You might have a modest house in London that incredibly might be worth many millions of pounds for 1,000 square feet, something like that. And if you downsize and go and buy somewhere in somewhere stunning in Wales, for instance, then you'll be in the money, David.
Yeah, so we really need a party. Again, I believe in one-issue politics since Brexit. I won't dig up that grave at the moment, but one-issue politics does seem to work when the issue is vital to the economy. And if we had a party that said, we will guarantee we'll do everything, they'll explain how we're going to drop your housing cost by 50%, the GDP would probably go up by about 20% in a year because people would have all this spare money to spend on luxuries.
Yeah, except they won't do that because people who own houses are more likely to vote, or flats, if they own their own property, they're much more likely to vote than those who rent, which is why Thatcher sold off the council houses, because she'd made that calculation that people who own their own homes are more likely to vote Conservative. And so neither of the major parties is going to do anything that is going to decrease the value of your home.
Exactly. They need to educate people on it, because if people realise that nobody benefits from rising house prices, because if you've got a £500,000 house and you're going to buy a house with an extra bedroom that cost £100,000 more, then if you wait 3 years or 5 years and yours goes up to 600, the other one will go up by 10% of that, and it go up by 660.
Wow,
that'll be 66,000. They'll need even more money to borrow or to make a difference when they're trading up. So nobody really gains, because as soon as you sell it off, everything else has gone up even more than the one you're selling. So
right, you're making my brain spin with all these numbers, David. I can't quite keep up with you. But thanks for the lesson in economics. Appreciate it. Now then, if you missed any part of this super show, it is available as a podcast on Global Player. We take the news and the ads out. It takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity, and by that method, you'll be able to save up some for a deposit on a house. Ask for it by name on the internet near you. It's called Nick Abbot, The Whole Show Podcast. It's on Global Player. Get Global Player for free from your App Store or globalplayer.com. I'll be back tonight at 10 o'clock. Coming up at 4, Henry Riley. But first, Clyde Ball. 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 But first,